Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Well, hello there, here we are, we're live again. It's another great show that we've got lined up for you today, and it's great to have you with us. Now on today's show, we're going to be discussing innovation for growth. No matter what size of business you're in, we've all got to be completely aware of how we go about growing our organisation. We've flown our guest in especially for today's programme, all the way from the Netherlands, is Costas. Costas, it's lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you.
I was going to attempt your surname, but let's get that out in the open, because whenever I see it, and it's happened over the past couple of weeks, I've seen your surname and I thought, I'm going to make a fool of myself. It is pronounced how?
Papaikonomou. My full name is actually Constantijn Thomas Papaikonomou, and I suggest we just keep it to Costas.
I think you're probably right,
Yeah.
Actually. You'd need a very big business card, wouldn't you?
I'd need two, probably.
Two of them
One
side
of
by
those fold-out
side.
ones, yeah.
Costas, I mean, we're talking about innovation in businesses. For those people who aren't familiar with you, your organisation is called Happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what do Happen do, and what do you supply or give to large retailers, mass market organisations?
So we service businesses that operate in consumer worlds. So this could be in food and drink, could be in pharma, could be in home care, could be in cleaning products, could be in oral care, toothpaste, things like that. These are all products that are basically for the mass markets, which consumers have known for many decades, very often, very mature markets, and we help them innovate. We help these businesses come up with what is the next thing to do. Because very often, you can imagine, if you work in laundry detergents, which have been around for so long, and so many things have already been on shelf and left the shelf again, it's quite hard to come up with, well, what's the next thing that's actually not only going to make consumers happy, but also going to make us as a business a little bit of money. And that, you could say, is the dynamic that we try and help our clients navigate, is how do you find what your consumers eventually will need? What are the frustrations that are still left in that category, which you can help them overcome? But how do you do that in a way which actually is through what you do well, through products you know how to make and products you know you can make money on? And it's that balance that we help them strike.
So is it then consumer and product research effectively is what you're doing and looking at?
It is consumer research to understand within a particular category. So if, for example, let's say, well, we have clients who make beer, big brewers. How do you figure out what is the next type of beer that would actually have a little bit of traction in market that consumers will be eager to try and then to consume? So you need to research that, indeed. You need to figure out what do people really want, what do they need, and sometimes you work on a really high level, sort of what are the trends that are going through this category, but more often the real inspiration comes from when you dive really deep and speak to people one-on-one, and so spend time with them just to see what are their habits, what are their behaviors, and then you can start asking yourself, well, what kind of behavior change would I love to see? How do I want maybe perhaps consumers to move from one product to another? Or what are the things that trigger them to move from one product type to another? Once you have a little bit of clarity on that, you can really pretty quickly start thinking about, okay, what do I do well as a business in order to start answering those opportunities that I spot? And again, if you are in a brewery, well, then probably you should not move into candy bars, for example, just because the opportunity seems to ask for it. You should ideally try and stay close to what are the things at least you know you can manage, because that's what you're tooled to do as an organization.
When you get a potential client or an existing client coming in through the door, do they come in with preconceived ideas? Do they make the same mistake over and over again, and they think they know what the consumer or what the consumer or the market wants, and in fact you've actually got to lead them gently by the hand and sort of say, actually, that's probably not the right way forward?
Innovation is a big deal. Let's put that up front. I mean, by now I could say, I think at Happen we figure out how to do it, but it is a big deal for any business, whether you're a small business or a large business. So typically the people who are in charge of innovation projects within our clients maybe see 5 or 10 of those throughout their whole career. Whereas in our case, we see them all the time, of course, and we see them across.
So you've got the expertise,
we have the expertise, and we've seen indeed how many of our clients, even if they operate in very different fields, actually come up against the same problems. And one of them, to go right to where you started that question, is do they come in with a preconceived idea? Well, very often they do, and it's almost unpicking their question, literally pulling the answer they think is required out of it, and starting from a clean slate in that sense. And a typical question that would come in at the beginning when literally people walk in through the door is say, how do we get to something disruptive? As if disruption is what you're looking for.
Now for those people who don't understand, because there's going to be people watching this sort of go, what's he talking about now? We're talking about things, Uber, for instance, is a disruptive technology that's coming to the market. So is that kind of the buzzword now that you're getting
disruption
from large, we want disruption and we want it now? Yeah,
and particularly they want exactly what Uber's doing, not realizing that Uber's actually losing $1 billion every quarter, and that's probably not a very healthy model. But indeed, disruption is one of those buzzwords. And it's a nice word. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the word. I guess the thing is...
Do they know what they mean when they ask it?
I think they know half of what it means. I think they know disruption means disrupting something in the market, which means offering something genuinely new to consumers. I think what they overlook is it also means disrupting your own organization, because it's probably something very different from what you made or assembled before, and that means you probably need to get rid of half your organization and replace it by something that can create the disruption. So the tricky thing with innovation is actually starting from the right point. It's understanding that innovation is a business tool, not something you do for, let's say, as a team building exercise or just to be creative for the sake of it. No, you do it specifically to answer a business challenge. And if you ask yourself what are the business challenges you can actually answer through innovation, it's fairly simple. You innovate either to protect your business because you see a new competitor coming up, or just to keep your customers interested, because of course very often between our clients and their consumers sit all the retailers who also want something new to put on shelf every now and then, even if the consumers aren't asking for it. So to protect or to actually grow, which means you're happy with the business you're running and you're actually looking for how do I get my capabilities, all the things that I do well as a business, how do I get those to perform in such a way that I actually start growing my business by perhaps creating new products that, say, attract new types of consumers into your organization. Or, for example, let's say if you're in a food category, how do I maybe move from the lunch products I'm creating now to breakfast, which might well double my impact in the market. So to protect or to grow your business is actually where, well, you could say realistically 90% of innovation resource should go. The 10% that is left, maybe that's for disruptive stuff, when you really, because disruption, I mean, if you're going to break your own business as much as the market, you probably don't want to do that before the market is actually broken. Of course, once it is broken, you should do it.
Because there is this danger that we all end up being very close to our own products, to our own brands, to our own services. And sometimes we don't allow them to actually have the lifespan that's actually in them. So we're very quick to innovate, we're very quick to change, we're very quick to do something different. But in fact, while we think it's old hat, perhaps maybe we're bored with our branding, the customer, the client, the end user perhaps, is only now getting used to what they're seeing and aren't that familiar with it at all. Do you see that?
Totally. And again, it's so interesting to look at it through a business lens, because on the one hand, you'll have someone inside a business, whether it's a small business or a large business, thinking about what do we do next? And they themselves are consumers as well. So they see particularly their competition doing all kinds of things of which they wish, wow, if only we had that, because that's probably where we should go. On the other hand, a big innovation probably requires a significant investment to basically create and market, which doesn't mean you need to do a lot of advertising or things like that. It's literally probably a factory that you need to upgrade to be able to create a new product. Now here's the thing, if you all the time are looking only for those big innovations, you're going to lose a lot of money, because if you spend £1 million, £5 million, £10 million on creating a new factory line, and 2 years later you're already looking at, okay, what's the next factory line going to be? You won't have given yourself the time to earn back the money you spent on that first one.
From your experience then, if we're looking at a large brand that's in the market, and of course we can apply this to small businesses who have got a brand or a product that's out there, but if you're looking, what do you think is how long's a bit of string, the average lifespan typically of a product? Should we say a retail product that's on the shelves today, what's the typical lifespan of a product?
I think you would need to make one distinction, which is what is, let's say, the platform product, what is the core around which it is built, and what are the variations that spin out of it. And a very easy example typically for people to understand is Magnum ice cream. The base shape of the Magnum ice cream hasn't changed much for the past, 25, 30 years?
No, it
actually,
hasn't.
since it launched. But my God, did they spend a lot of money on that product when they first launched it to create a factory line, basically, or many factory lines by now, that can create that quality of ice cream, get that thick layer of a chocolate onto it. And they're going to be very careful with that investment. So what they do is continuously create variations that sort of work off the existing platform. And if anything, that's one of the things we also help our clients do, is to think that way about innovation, is you make a big investment into a new product platform on a regular basis, but not all the time. You basically do it, maybe to answer your question, once every 2 years, once every 3 years. And you just make sure that you can keep the, let's say, the revenue coming in into that platform with interesting innovations, which are small variations.
Do you know, it's really interesting, because we had a guest on the program a couple of weeks back, Gordon Treadgold, who is an international speaker. He Skyped in on the program, and we were talking a completely different subject nearly, but the same basic theory. We were talking about how you do your tweets and your LinkedIn posts, and he will do one every day. But what he actually does, he will pick a particular topic and he will look for the variations in that topic.
Yeah.
So what he's not doing, he's not reinventing the entire brand or product each and every day. What he's doing is he's looking at a different perspective for that particular product or brand, and through that it's allowing the main brand to grow.
Exactly.
And that's really what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Exactly the same story. It's a nice analogy. I'm going to have to use that.
You're going to use that? You can
I'm
use
going to have
that.
to steal that. Did I sign for not being able to use stuff like that? Because I'm here to learn as well.
But really interesting. I'll tell you what, we're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit more about, I mean, really, this is big brand lessons for small businesses, or for all businesses.
For all businesses,
and for us all to realise and to remember as well that it's that implementation of that innovation that can actually make such a difference to the way we do it. I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about analytics and statistics, because statistics lie, don't they?
Though they can be made to lie. You can bend them any way you want. Yeah.
Listen, hold that thought, and we'll come back in just a moment. Hope you're enjoying today's program. No matter what size business you are, today's program is going to be absolutely ideal for you. If you've got a product, maybe you're getting bored with what you're doing at the moment. Maybe you're getting bored with You Feel Your Brand. And all you've got to do is just step back for a moment and consider it the same way as your customers do. Listen, there's more to come from Costas on this edition of Business Connections Live. It's great to have you with us. We are live on a Monday, and here we are at lunchtime. It's funny, while Costas was talking there about Magnum ice creams, my director was whispering in my ear that you were making him feel hungry. And I must admit, I could do a Magnum right now as well, with that thick chocolate on. By the way, other ice creams are, of course, available. And let's go back to last week's edition of Business Connections Live. In fact, we didn't have a program last week. It was the week before. We had Dexter Moscow on the program. A really great show, in fact. He's a speaker, business coach about sales. Don't just sell, he says, influence and persuade with power and impact. That's what the program was all about. It was a cracking show. The guy has a lovely voice. It's a voice that you can just listen to for hours. But more importantly, the information that he came out with was second to none. And what was nice about Dexter, I think, was he was taking so many different disciplines, because we have different sales techniques that we hear about. We've had different guests on the programs talking about different sales techniques, but he was taking a bit from this one, a bit from that one, and he was putting them all together, making an effective sales campaign. Cracking show. If you missed it, I do suggest you check it out on the website, just to give you a bit of a taster. Here's Dexter Moscow from Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. On today's show, we're discussing Don't Just Sell, Influence and Persuade with Power and Impact. My guest on today's show is Dexter Moscow. He's a keynote speaker and also a business coach as well.
First of all, let me say Dexter Moscow is my real name.
It's not a made-up name.
It isn't a made-up name, and it's not a stage name. Although, as you and I know, I worked with QVC, the shopping channel, for many years, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, teaching other people how to present in that environment. I think that what's happened with the internet, with email, and it comes back to what I just said about selling to an invisible audience. Majority of people are selling to an invisible audience because they won't pick up the phone, they won't communicate. And the challenge is now that people aren't asking the questions to understand what the needs are of their customers, their colleagues, whoever they're interacting with, and they are selling. I think what I'm finding now, though, is that the pendulum is swinging back. when we were so reliant upon technology to do our selling for us, we now realize, and I forget who coined the phrase, but somebody said, no deal was ever done without a conversation. And I think that the mistake that a lot of people make is when they pick up the phone, they go, hi, I'm such and such a company and I want to tell you about this wonderful product. Completely wrong. Even that 30-70 rule starts there. People buy emotionally, they decide logically. If I've had the conversation where there is at least some understanding of I've tapped into something that's causing them aggravation, then my call to action is, what do we do now? Don't ask for a meeting. People immediately think that a meeting is selling. And what we're saying is, don't sell, but inform and consult. This is a step-by-step process. It isn't something that you can jump in and jump into. And I'm using that word jump because what you are trying to do when you are in front of a client is actually to get out as quickly as possible if nothing is going to happen. The next step, in fact, it should be the largest step of the conversation. And again, 70-30, we're asking a lot of questions to elicit the problems, the pains that they're experiencing, so that we can climb those steps.
So we've done personal impact, outline, and trouble.
What is the pain you're suffering? This is not rocket science. People have various sales methodologies. What this says is that there is a proven methodology. I've worked with many sales organizations, Dale Carnegie, the Sandler Sales Institute, and so there's nothing really new. So what I've done is to bring some of this learning together. Time. Our time is as valuable as the people that we're speaking to. You know, there used to be an old concept that the customer is always right. The customer is not always right. The customer lies. We know because you send a proposal through, and as we said, they give it to somebody else. So we need to maintain control. And if this everybody step, if we haven't done it before we even step into the room, then everybody step says, who else needs to be involved in this? Get them in the room now. I'll go and sit outside in the reception. You bring them in. You know, you may have a set rate card, but the majority of people will think, what is the problem that I'm going to resolve for these people? What is that worth to the company? Because when you're talking about numbers, and the first thing, I agree with you, you should, if you've got to this point in the conversation and people are still listening to you, you can say, okay, we're going to talk about fees or numbers. Does that mean we're going to do business together? My name, as you heard, is Dexter Moscow. I appreciate if you've been listening, that I hope you've got something of value to it. My key message is this: make the emotional connection, understand that there are facts and figures you need to give them, that's the logic, but our key and our responsibility, like a doctor, is to find out what's causing the problem, is to find out what the pain is. Ask the relevant questions that will enable you to give the relevant answers. The resolution, the pleasure that you can bring to your clients, suspects, prospects, and colleagues.
Really great show there. If you get a chance to check it out, can't say his name for some strange reason. Dexter Moscow. It is his real name, by the way. If you want to check out the entire programme, don't forget, go to our website if you can, at Business Connections Live. And incidentally, if you're watching the programmes, there's over 200 hours of great business advice online for you. And it's all free if you want to check out all the programmes, or you think you've got maybe an idea for one, or you'd like a programme just like one of these for your brand or your business, then why don't you get in contact with us? It's dead easy to do that. You can drop us an email if you wish to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Ideally, though, don't drop us an email because so much gets lost in the essence of the words. Pick the phone up, give us a call. We've all got to do it occasionally. 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. You can speak to myself, Steve Hyland, or to the other co-founder, director, insurance salesperson, Linda Bazan. She'll take the call as well, and you can have a chat about what you're looking to actually do. You can follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter at BCL Business TV. And don't forget the Facebook page. Of course, we broadcast every week on Facebook Live, simulcast at the same time. You can go to our Facebook page and you can also watch the programme there and leave comments on the show too. We love to hear your comments. And don't forget, the real place to go, the number one place to go has got to be the website. So many places to go, but the real one is businessconnectionslive.com. That's your absolute destination. Make certain that you take yourself there and peruse, go through all the different shows. And there's everything from fundraising to sales to marketing to pension. It's all there. Everything you need to know about running a business from startup to shutting it down is on that website. So do go along to businessconnectionslive.com. You're watching Business Connections Live. It's great to have your company with us today. We're talking innovation for growth, no matter what size your business is. And joining me in the studio today is Costas. He's from a company, an organisation called Happen. Are they Netherlands based?
Actually, London is where we started. To be in fairness, it's Happen Group by now because we've grown ourselves.
Yeah, you're all over the place. You're based a lot in Netherlands.
I'm based in the Netherlands, yes. So our research team is mostly in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, London. We have an office in New York, though technically it's New Jersey, I should be honest. And then we have some people scattered around. We have someone in Sydney. We have people in Toronto. So very much a global organisation because we do work with global clients. So that is.
And how big is it? How many? I'm going to say how many people you got working for you. Don't say half of them.
No. About 70 people, roughly 70.
So quite a significant size then, particularly in the kind of industry that you're in.
Yeah, I think we've quietly grown to become one of the largest probably in this space. At least quite a few of the organisations we used to look at as in, wow, that would be amazing if we could be like that. We're now larger.
Was there a moment, do you think, in the growth of the company that you thought, actually, we're getting this right? Because it does seem that this is really off topic now.
No, go ahead.
It does seem that companies go along, don't they? And then one company will stumble across something, and that makes all the difference. And the company that doesn't stumble across it goes down the pan. But you stumble across something, and that's the catalyst that allows the company to expand and grow. What was it for your business?
Probably a couple of things, but I'm very aware, at least I feel very aware of how, in comparison to when we started, because we knew the industry was broken. That was the starting point. The industry of innovation and innovation services was kaput, for the simple reason people were failing at innovation over and over and over. Mm-hmm. We had some very, tangible ideas, let's put it that way, on how to do it better. But for the first 5 or 6 years, you kind of know, because you're running on adrenaline and confidence. This must be working because clients are coming back and we're making a difference. Products are being launched off our products. They stay in market. And then around year 5, I'd say, we did a pretty scary thing, I dare say. We actually counted how much revenue we generated for our clients. And at the time, it was like $2 billion. And this is the stuff which is out in market and stays in market and keeps bringing the money coming in.
Did you instantly put your prices up?
We definitely put our confidence up. Prices up is always that's a different show
another
entirely.
ball game. No.
But that's when we became aware. I became aware. My fellow founders became aware. The whole team became aware. My God, this is working.
You're making a difference.
We are actually having an impact, and by now the clock is somewhere between 4 and 5 billion. But it's genuine money coming into our clients, which is the reason we're trying to do this, innovate more successfully. And to put that in perspective, not all our clients are like the Unilevers of the world, raking in like $1 billion on every success. No, there are a lot of smaller organizations in there, family-owned businesses who have maybe one brand or one product category they service. But again, if you just look at what makes innovation work or not, it doesn't really matter if there's a big business or a small business sitting behind it. Because it's in the end,
Do you think they're the same problems?
Of course it's the same problems because you're servicing the same consumers. It's the same quality you need to embed in that product. What might be different, though, is you might be servicing the consumer, basically the same consumers in their same frustrations or the same happiness. The way you answer that is different. If you are a large organization, you will have different considerations on how you can effectively do that. For example, if you're looking to launch a nice new biscuit because you feel there's a nice little opportunity you found either like with a particular moment of the day or a particular place people move through, If you are a large organization, that's not a very interesting space unless you can maybe ship 50,000 tons of biscuits. If you're a small business, that's a different picture. That might be very interesting at 200 tons, maybe even at 1 ton, because the organization, the effect of the organization in this story is really only on what is a commercially sensible solution. What you shouldn't do, if you're a small business, is try and copy what the big ones do, because they're just run differently, which means different types of products give them a profit.
Now that's
and
interesting,
the other way around.
because a lot of people say that you should look at success and emulate it.
Wrong thing to do. First of all, it's unfair. There's something which you could call, which is, I think it's called winner's bias. Everyone always only looks at the success stories, and the reality is that's only 5, maybe 10% of the products out there. Okay, if you look at our success stories, it's 100%, but that's a very small section of what you actually see out there. What you don't see are all the ones that are struggling or work so-so or fail. There's equal you can learn from that. And what you'll probably see amongst the failures is large organizations trying to service a very small niche at a very small volume just because it seemed okay, or the other way around, a small business trying to copy what a huge business is doing, thinking that it must be the same for them. And it isn't. And you even see it go wrong between organizations of the same size, where, for example, and if you're running a small business, this is where you have a massive benefit or massive advantage, but in large organizations, the responsibility for innovation might sit with someone with like a marketing background who sits on a different continent maybe from the manufacturing, who sits on a different continent again from the R&D. So that person responsible for innovation might be looking at the market data, and they get the reports coming in every day or every week, and they're looking, well, I see competitor X, Y, and Z move in that direction, creating these types of products. We should go there too, with no understanding or knowledge of what they themselves are actually good at from a product manufacturing point of view, for example. Whereas if you're in a small organization, those 3 disciplines probably sit in the same building, maybe even the same room. So it's much easier to, let's say, bring those disciplines together, and in that way actually get to solutions that work for you as an organization. It becomes just much easier and much quicker and much less risk of failure, I dare say.
Now your background then, you're an engineer background.
I am originally an engineer.
So is it then the processes that make the difference? Because you implement processes within the business, you show processes to your clients. Is it processes then that are the cornerstone of what you're preaching effectively?
Yes, but not only on the technical side, because getting to good products is one half of the equation. The other half is getting to the right products and making sure you're actually creating products that not just work for you as a business, but also answer whatever micro frustration you've tapped into or whatever motivation you see amongst your consumers. That still needs to be done properly as well. And that's literally where we spend half our time, maybe even more, just getting to the right, what is the right thing to do? Because if anything, a good innovation initiative starts with understanding why you even need to do it.
So making certain that the product that you're looking at is actually relevant.
Should we even innovate? Maybe start with that question. If things are going well, do you need something new? Well, you probably do, just to stay ahead of the curve, but do you need something massive that is going to be really impactful on your organization? Or do you maybe need something small, just to sort of keep everyone excited around something which is already pretty good? And making those kinds of considerations at the beginning, that's basically what you could say proper scoping is all about. What's the business challenge really here that innovation is required to resolve? Once that innovation is there, what's it going to do for us? Is it going to just make sure that a competitor can't touch us? Is it going to open up a new market? Is it going into a new region? These kinds of questions aren't really different if you're a small business or a big business, because you need to ask them before you start. What you shouldn't do is just basically walk into your own team and say, guys, we need something new. We'll give a prize to anyone who comes up with something interesting that looks new. Well, that will maybe give you something new, but it might not be the right thing for the business at all. It might be the opposite.
And this is an interesting question from my point of view. Do you see large organisations come to you with an idea that they have convinced themselves it's the next best thing, and the moment they start explaining it to you, you go, this really isn't going to work?
Not very often, thank God, because I'm sure funny stories.
But that would be quite a difficult situation to be in, wouldn't it?
No, I think if you compare here's where large organizations and small organizations are different. Large organizations, by definition, are also broken up into disciplines or into expertises. And you often see that large organizations are just very good at one of two things. Either very good of understanding their consumers and then maybe not so good at actually creating products, or the other way around. They're very good at creating products and just get it wrong all the time because they don't understand their consumers. And this is just where you could say the culture of the organization has basically created that. It's always skewing towards one of the two. I mean, and also, again, this is also a bias because the organizations that are client with us tend to be bad at one of the two, and then we help them complement or sort of improve.
So what do you say to them? Do you say, look, you've got to talk more, you've got to get your insights from your clients, you've got to find out more about what your potential customers, not your clients, your potential customers actually want, do more research there to make certain that what you're delivering is going to be successful?
Yeah, and even if they're already doing a lot of consumer research, because most organizations, particularly the bigger ones, medium to large ones, do a lot of research, it's actually just doing it in the right way, rather than just getting trend reports in, or having big quantitative pieces of research done and have the report delivered on your desk and then just looking at the numbers. I mean, it's going to give you some indication, but it's not going to help you win the war. The war will always be won by people who do that, or at least know where to look, and then actually go out and go look themselves. So getting really close to that consumer, really understanding what these people are about. They're more than just numbers in reports.
I mean, before we started the program, we were talking about some of the large internet organizations. And we do live in a numbers game. People are always looking to qualify their thoughts, their aspirations, their dreams with numbers. And sometimes the numbers tell lies, don't they?
The problem with numbers, and if there are any people with a little bit of knowledge of statistics listening, and these could be technical people sitting in factories with like a green belt or black belt Six Sigma degree, because you're a statistician then too, and anyone working in research will know that if you have enough numbers, you can find any pattern you want. You can find any correlation you want, and it becomes much more a tool, you could say, to bend maybe towards what you want to happen versus what is actually happening. That's the cynical reality. I'm not saying all research stinks, because half our business is in research, but it's really, really tricky to not go down a path where you start believing your own truths and just hope that what you see is the actual thing. Fooled by randomness is a nice term around that.
Listen, hold the thought. Yeah. A really interesting one. I don't know, maybe you found yourself in that particular situation yourself, that all the figures, the way you interpret the figures anyway, all those figures are actually saying to you, look, this is the way you need to go. And in fact, if you were to step back, or somebody maybe was to interpret your figures slightly differently, you would see a different story. And I think, and that is the issue a lot of the times when you're looking at analytics and analysis of figures when you're in business. A very, very interesting area to be going into. Listen, my guest on today's show, we are looking at innovation for growth, no matter what size your business is. My guest today is Costas, and Costas is from happen.com. You can check out their website. We'll show you their website in just a few moments' time. And that's all to come still on this edition of Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Here we are. We're on a Monday. My guest today is Costas from Happen. It's 4.2 billion generated. We like that. So on the website, that's...
I like it even more.
That's even better, isn't it? That's just have a quick gander at the website if we can, if that's all right. And you'll just you can see there's the website. Now that's a lovely thing to put on your website, isn't it? One sold every 10 seconds. I mean, some nice statistics on there. Our innovation success in your sector. You can see the key sectors that they work in. Also, you can see some of the brands that they are working with as well at the moment. We'll come back to that a little bit later on this edition of the programme. And still to come, we're going to be talking about creating commercial viable products, services using existing assets. That's going to be a big one. And also building momentum and confidence to get things moving. Okay, let's go back and get some more good advice for you on this edition of Business Connections Live. We had Sally Hindmar. She joined us on the programme way back in March 2016. She was on Business Connections Live 124. How to have impact and to influence kind of ties in today. She's the Managing Director of Partners with You. No matter how experienced you are, there are moments when you don't feel as confident as you'd like to. It might be when standing in front of a camera or on stage, but it can just as easily be having a difficult conversation with a colleague. It's all about presentation techniques. How you are the best you that you possibly can be when you stand up in front of an audience. Remember, if you're doing PowerPoint presentations, death by PowerPoint, within your organization, you're standing up there and you've actually got to get that information across to the audiences there. Maybe you're selling a concept, maybe you're selling an idea, maybe you're selling what Costas has been talking about, maybe you're selling the analytics, the research behind a particular product that's out there at the moment. How do you do that in the best possible way? Most people would say that they would rather die than give a public presentation. If you're in that particular boat, then I suggest you do watch the entire edition of Sally's programme. But just to give you a bit of a taster, here were her key takeaways from this edition of Business Connections Live.
My name's Sally Hindmarch and I run a company called Partners With You, and my key takeaways would, when you're presenting, remember that the audience is just like you. So use words and terminology that you and they will understand without a dictionary. Work on your voice beforehand so that your muscles of your mouth, your tongue and your lips are working so that they can hear what you've got to say. Use your eye contact so that they're listening to what you've got to do. And my final tip would be stand up. Stand up or sit up straight so that you look alert and interested.
That's it, be alert. The country needs more alerts. Sally Hindmarch there, Managing Director of Partners With You, how to have impact and influence people. And she was on Business Connections Live 124. That's the 14th of March. Over 200 hours of programmes are sitting on the website. In that saying down there, the previous programme, of course, I'm not a previous programme. I'm really here. Now, we're doing something that's I'm very, very excited about at the moment, and perhaps you can help us. Obviously, Business Connections Live has been going for around about 3 years now, over 200 hours worth of programmes. And what we've decided to do is we've decided to invite you to a certain extent, to become part of it. Imagine having an involvement, imagine having been involved on a day-by-day basis. We're looking for you to give us your support. We'd love you to be our patrons. We've joined up with the team at Patreon, and we're now giving you the opportunity, well, to get some great rewards from us here at Business Connections Live. So all you've got to do, if you want to find out more about this, is just log on to our website at Business Connections Live. Look out for the orange buttons. They're all over the website, or the orange P. Click on that and ask yourself this question. If you love the shows, will you consider supporting us? If you press the link, it'll take you to this Patreon page that tells you more about what we're all about, and also how, by you helping us, we can help you grow your business. We've got a whole different range of different rewards, so even if you come in with a couple of dollars a month or something like that, then you can actually get a reward back. And if you're a large corporate and you're looking at this and you're thinking this would work really well, then you could in fact actually sponsor the entire channel. Now, it's dead easy to do. You go onto our website, press the orange links, it'll take you to our Patreon page, and when you're on the page, it's dead easy, and you can then become a patron for a couple of dollars to support your favourite business channel. It's as easy as that. Join us here at Business Connections Live, and if you can, please support us on Patreon. I would really appreciate that, so thank you very much indeed. Just go to the site, and if you want to, you can also go to Patreon/Business Connections Live, and that'll take you straight to our patron site as well, where you can start. Now, if you go there today, it was launched, I think, on Friday. If you go there today, there are very few Patreons on it at the moment. We are literally just starting it, so you can be in there at the front, and I'm sure that we could do something very special for you if you go online. But your help will actually give us the opportunity to make certain that the programs remain free on all the different platforms. Remember, they're on YouTube, they're on iTunes, they're on Roku, they're on Blueberry, they're on Stitcher, they're all over the place. It allows us to make certain that the programs remain free, because we don't see the point in actually putting business programs up and putting them behind firewalls. Whether you become a patron or not, you will always have access to the 200 hours worth or thereabouts of programs that are available for businesses just like yours. So please, if you can, support us here at Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great show today. My guest on today's program, we're talking about innovation for growth, no matter what size your business is. And joining me in the studio is Costas. Go on, you've got to give us your name one more time. It is
Papaikonomou.
For a minute now, I thought you'd forgotten how to say it.
I was just actually thinking, shall I give you the whole name or just a
No, give us the whole name.
Constantijn Thomas Papaikonomou.
That is a great name. That is the business.
It is, as we said, like a fold-out business card. It is, or a little roll maybe to.
What they call you in the office? Just Costas.
Just Costas, of course. Yes.
Or you.
Yes. Well, in direct conversation like this, yes.
All right. Listen, this is fascinating because I think what we've been talking about, it's the realization that it doesn't matter how big the company is, we've all got to do the same processes to get to where we need to be. And I think that's the thing that's opened my eyes today. So we're talking about the innovation, the relevance, not the creativity. That's important. There's no point in having a creative product if it hasn't got any relevance in the market. So we understand that. Consumer insights, listen to what your consumers want. Don't give them what you think they want. I think that's important. A lot of people do that. That seems to be a major mistake.
Yep.
Here's what I'm going to give you, whether you like it or not, that's what it's going to be, take it. So that seems to be a recipe for disaster. What about when it comes to the understanding of how we create products that are commercially viable and services that are commercially viable? How do we go about that? What are the things that we can use within our organisation to allow us to create those assets?
So I guess what underlies all of this is understanding that innovation, whether it's big or small, is a disruptive force. If you would look at a business, a small one or a big one, doesn't really matter. In the end, a business is a unit which you're trying to run as efficiently as possible, as predictable as possible, to create products. Whether it's services or real products, whether it's food products or cleaning products, doesn't matter. What you want to do is you want to press a button, raw ingredients go in, and finished goods come out. And it happens in a predictable form. Now, in a way, innovation gives you the opposite of what operational excellence gives, because operational excellence is all about squeezing the last few percentages out, whereas innovation comes in and says, we're going to disrupt that beautifully efficient process, and we're going to have to do something different. Now, this is where commercially viable ideas sort of all of a sudden make sense, because a dramatic change is probably not going to make commercially viable sense if the benefit it delivers in market is not going to be a huge reward. If you're looking, and this is again why it's so important to always look at innovation as a business tool, if you're just looking to make small changes in order to keep a competitor at bay, you should always try and do that within what is now your operational system, which is basically sticking as close as you can to your existing solutions, just making small tweaks. And it's just understanding what in your business are small tweaks, somewhat larger tweaks, or huge changes, understanding how those are different from each other, literally just looking internally and understanding it, that will help you make a better decision on what is commercially viable or not. And
can you give an example of what you've seen where that's been applied within industry without giving away any confidences?
Yeah, so an easy example, like I shared at the beginning, was Magnum ice cream. Invest once in a beautiful piece of kit that can create the ice cream, and then spend all your money afterwards on just creating small tweaks on the ice cream, changing the flavors, changing the coatings, maybe changing the stick every now and then. And just
so this is going back to what we were saying about when you, that one product, different perspectives.
Absolutely.
Do that all the time, but using the assets that you already have.
Yeah, and the key, and this is where you could say the magic comes in. Magic between brackets, because we do it and it's not black box. But if you look, in particular in manufacturing, if you look at a manufacturing or a production line, it has been designed and built with love by the people who are basically operating it to be as efficient as they possibly can to create the product it was designed to create. Even they will not by nature stand back every now and then and say, what else can we do with this piece of kit? What else can we make? Because you could say their whole mindset will be always around whatever we need to make, it needs to be as efficient as possible. And also, there is another person in this building somewhere who's going to tell us what consumers want us to make. So we're just going to wait for that information to come in, of the marketing person or innovation person or whoever is responsible for that coming in and say, boys and girls, the consumer has spoken, this is what they want next. And then everyone scratches their head, looks at the manufacturing assets typically and says, well, it's not what this thing builds, this thing makes something else, this thing makes what we're doing right now, which is quite different. And this is where you could say the biggest challenge, I believe, that we help resolve is getting those two worlds to come together. So all of a sudden the innovation world and the operational world are no longer in conflict. It's basically by getting the technical people, say, responsible for creating products to understand not just what they're machines can do now, or their distribution system, or whatever platforms they run on. But also to be very open in all the small variations or bigger variations you can create if you just decide to spend a little money on a particular part of it, or to spend a little time waiting for something to develop.
Is there ever the moment in that environment where collectively the decision then goes, actually, no, let's not do any, this is the wrong move forward?
That's the thing. So no longer. It used to be always this black and white conversation of we should do it or we should not do it. By bringing those two worlds together, of people who understand what consumers need and what your capabilities are with the, let's say, manufacturing or the creation assets you have, by making them play together, because it's literally almost like giving someone who wants a toy a box of Lego to build whatever toy they want. Those two together all of a sudden create not a yes-no scenario, they create a spectrum of, if we want to spend no money and want it tomorrow, there are very few things we can do now, which is these. But if you want to spend a little bit of money because you know the opportunity is big and you're going to earn a lot of money, then actually we have a much wider range of things we can do. So it's like all of a sudden, in between yes and no, there's this gray area of solutions that might work. And then you can start playing on timelines, because you talked about, or was it in a question or a thought, I don't know what it was, but you said, well, is there like a maximum time a product can be in market before it needs to be replaced?
A life cycle.
A life cycle. This is exactly what you automatically start doing then, because you understand, okay, we need to, for example, there's a particular need to do something new in the market because of a challenger has come in or whatever. You can very quickly chart, these are the things we can do right now. It's not going to be very impressive from a product change point of view, but we can do them right now. So go do, because they won't cost you money and you can do them immediately. But we also know these are the things that come onto the radar if we do have 10,000 to spend, 100,000 to spend, 1 million to spend, which allows us much more precise solutions to answer that challenge that we've seen. But we just know we will need some time. We might need a year to realize them. But in the meantime, we're already doing the things we can do for free. And it's making that whole thing a conversation rather than a yes-no.
In your experience then, is that something you have to educate, for instance, some of your clients? For instance, this is in our business, one of us is very black and white.
Yeah.
And the other one is shades of grey. So, and that's the way our business operates. Mm-hmm. And in fact, because we've got those two opposing styles, it kind of works out. When large corporates come to you, as a large corporate, the personality of the corporate, do you see them coming in sometime as being black and white, and you have got to convince them to be shades of grey?
Yes, and you have the benefit that the shades of grey and the black and white person talk a lot and spend time together and know each other's worlds. In large corporate organizations, there's a lot of frustration around these teams just not realizing how different the language is that they speak, or how different their personal rewards are. Whereas one might be looking to do as many different things as possible, the other just says, let's call it a Model T and make it black. And that's
but the thing with it is that yes, no, 1-0, that kind of nearly that digital kind of look at it worked. It worked for Ford, didn't it? I mean, doesn't matter what colour you want, it's going to be black. It's called the Model T. There are no variations. But was it because he was the first?
Yes, and it was a very immature market. And this is the whole thing. The innovation becomes more difficult the more mature the market is. I mean, try and invent a new car now. I mean, you've seen what it takes with, well, Elon Musk in this case with Tesla. He's losing money hand over fist, and the jury's still out if that's going to work. So it's really difficult nowadays, and that's true for cars, it's true for toothpaste, for laundry products, it's true for so many of the things we see around us. And the funny thing is, they need innovation most, and actually a lot of innovation is happening all the time in these spaces. It's just not we're not aware of it very much. We're not really clocked to, or sort of our lenses are wrong. We don't see it. What we do see are, Facebook is going into VR. Uber has a new app. We tend the whole public sort of conversation around innovation seems to be zooming in only on what happens to run on a phone, and forgetting that actually 99.9999% of your happiness is probably not coming from the apps you're running on your phone, but literally the products around you which you're touching at every moment in the day. And those need to innovate as well, because every product you see around you, someone's making it, someone's trying to make a living off it, and someone's trying to stay ahead of a competitor in that space. So that's where innovation lives.
To get that over must be very difficult from your point of view. Do you sometimes feel that you are starting from a back foot when you're explaining that to your potential clients when they come in?
No.
Or when you do presentations, do you see businesses sitting there listening to you, and it's nearly like a revelation to them that yes, that's the way they've been feeling, but they didn't realise that you're vocalising.
That's maybe more the case, and I guess this is our benefit as an agency working in this space every day. Is we see so many different cases and so many scenarios that we kind of know how this works. Whereas it might be a very real frustration for some of the people sitting in these organizations that they really just don't know, why do we keep failing? Why does it never ever make it to launch? Why does R&D always say no? Why does, or the other way around, why does market research always tell us to do stuff we can't make? And that can be a really polarizing and because of that, paralyzing situation to be in. And it's only just by showing a couple of cases on how you can actually very easily work your way around it that it becomes very, very easy actually to tackle it. It's the market researcher realizing maybe you should actually talk to people who actually use your products yourself instead of getting it from a report. Sorry. Maybe it's realizing that a technical person should look at their manufacturing line as if it's a kitchen, not a thing just making one thing. And then all of a sudden the world opens up, and just bringing those two worlds together, it just takes out the pain. It takes out the pain.
Taking out the pain, I like that. Listen, hold on to the thought. Building momentum and confidence to get things moving is what we're going to be talking about. Very quickly, I've just noticed that my laptop isn't plugged in, but what I will do is I will once again show you the website. This is Happen's website. It is... you can see some of the examples that they've got there. Our innovation success in your sector. Everything from the likes of these organisations are currently dealing. I mean, this is really good reference stuff here. Identify and define actionable insights. Let's talk money, inspire and motivate. The latest tools for innovation success. It's a very, very comprehensive website. If you want to find out more details, you can go onto their website and you fill out the form and they'll get back to you. And as Costas has already said, they are a global organisation. They're based in Netherlands, London, New York. There's a few of them in Sydney and here and there and all around the world. If you want to find out more information, go to their website at happen.com. More to come from Costas in just a moment on this edition of Business Connections Live. Now, I've mentioned to you that we are all over the place. We're like a rash. You'll find us everywhere if you want to watch the programmes. Over 200 hours worth of business advice, all waiting for you, absolutely free online. You can go to our main website, of course, at Business Connections Live. Or you can go and maybe if you're in the States at the moment, a lot of our audience is American-based, we know that. In fact, the interesting thing about it is that the marketplace is UK, America and China. I think that is really interesting. That's where our analytics come back and say that people are watching. And I find that really fascinating. It shows that there's a real interest from, from China, what we're doing, how business operates here in the UK. The American market, once again, hello to all our American friends. Lovely to have you with us today. The other thing that's interesting there, of course, you can watch us on Roku. We've had a number of emails from people coming back and saying how much they enjoy watching us on Roku. And all the time we are looking to expand the programme. Now, I mentioned earlier on about Patreon and how you can support the business. Another way that you can help us, of course, is we live in a world of numbers. It's all about mass. It's all about how many people are doing something. That's what people are interested in, isn't it? If somebody says to you, how many people were at the football match? They're after numbers. Donald Trump stood up there and said, look at how big the crowd was. It was all about numbers. And it's all about numbers in many respects for us as well, because we want as many people to find out the best way to grow and to develop their business. And one way you can help us is by going onto iTunes, downloading the podcast of the programme on iTunes and leaving an absolutely raving review about the programme, how good it is. Just follow the link on your iTunes and then click on View in iTunes, follow the programme to our podcast download page. You'll find a link there that says Ratings and Reviews. Click on that. There you go. Thank you very much. That'll then bring you down this customer review. Write a review. Tell us how great you think Costas is, how great the program is. Then leave a 5-star review. Now, what will happen then is that when other people watch the program, the algorithm that iTunes use will recommend the program to them as well. So if they're interested in business advice, business programs, then they'll be recommended to watch Business Connections Live. That would be a great help. And I can tell you right now, thousands of you are downloading on iTunes on a monthly basis. So for that, thank you very much indeed. We really do appreciate it. So please leave a raving review on iTunes about how great you think the program is and make Business Connections Live even more successful. Is it worth giving all the addresses, I wonder? Here we go then. Here come the addresses. If you'd like to email us, you can at studio@businessconnectionslive.com. If you'd like to have a chat with us, maybe turn your newsletter into a video program just like this one, then why not give us a call? 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. You can follow our stream of consciousness. We were talking about Twitter earlier on, Costas and myself, BCL Business TV. If you wish, you can also go to our Facebook page as well. There it is, Facebook Business Connections Live. And don't forget, the place that you do need to go is to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. And don't forget the Patreon links as well. If you can spare a fiver, Governor, and some sandwiches, we'd really appreciate it as well. There are real opportunities there, from small business opportunities all the way through to corporate patronage of the channel. That would be brilliant. If you want more information, then get in contact with us here at Business Connections Live. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Costas. He's from happen.com. We're talking innovation for growth, no matter what size your business is. We've worked our way through it. It's interesting. It's been a fascinating insight into the mentality, the mental place that large companies are. But you follow what I mean? Yeah. What they're thinking in their mind's eye. We've talked about the innovation, how they've got to listen to the insights from their consumers, a lesson that even small businesses can learn from that. Creating commercially viable products and services by using existing assets. The question then has got to be, I suppose it's a bit like this really, to a certain extent, what we're doing there. You have a great idea, you've got a great product. How do you build that momentum? How do you start it rolling? How do you get it out there into the marketplace and maintain that momentum? What's the clue? What's the hint? Well, what do you do? What's the magic?
Probably just to do exactly what you just said. So it's a couple of things. It is acknowledging where it might fail, because the group of people that create the idea, with all its bells and whistles, might not be the same group of people that need to bring it to market and keep it in market. It's bringing those together and actually having a proper shared understanding of what makes that idea really tick, what makes it work. Because that gives you two things, actually. First of all, it gives everyone who's then going to work and fly with that idea, taking it to customers, taking it maybe into communications, etc. It'll help them understand what's to keep, but also where they can compromise. That's two things that go hand in hand, because compromise will be required from the day it's launched. And if anything, bring that launch day forward as far as possible, because the change is going to come anyway. So rather than spending forever tinkering and sort of trying to make it perfect, make sure you have version 1.1 waiting in the hallway, which is already sort of in preparation when you launch your first one.
A lot of people do pontificate, don't they? They get paralyzed by staring at their navel until everything is exactly 100% right before they launch it.
Yeah. The benefit we have, the world we work in, which is fast-moving consumer goods. Again, doesn't really matter if you're a small business or a big business, but fast-moving also means if it's on shelf, you'll be able to put the new ones on shelf pretty soon if you want, because the churn is quite high. So allowing yourself time to change the product when it's in market is probably the best way to give it a good chance of survival, and just not assuming you got it right the first time. Now, what is trickier, of course, and this is where smaller businesses have the benefit over the larger ones, is probably the large businesses are going to go across one whole continent in one go when they launch. Huge amount of risk, huge amount of stockpiling they need to do just to fill, you could say, the distribution system. Whereas a smaller organization might be, I'm not saying necessarily saying they are, but they might be much more nimble in getting those tweaks out, or maybe launching a product first with a friendly customer through a friendly distributor or a friendly supermarket, as is mostly the case with our type of product, just to see, is it working? Did we get it right? Or how do we optimize the communication around it that as many as possible people can see it? But that's, in a way, that feels like work, which is just doing the things you need to do anyway in order to get it out. I think there's another thing to, again, where smaller businesses will have the advantage over the bigger ones, which is aligning stakeholders internally. Because no matter how small or big your business, doing something new, whether it's small or big, will basically challenge the status quo of what the business was.
Do you think businesses are really risk averse? They taking that risk. I suppose people's jobs are hanging on the line, aren't they?
Yeah.
Every decision they make at the level that we're talking about for these large multinationals, it could be catastrophic for their brand and reputation. And there's been a few out there, haven't there, where it has gone horribly, horribly wrong.
And you can be pretty sure that those where it went horribly wrong had massive committees sitting behind them saying, let's go do this. That's the thing. No, because the risk awareness, in my experience of what I've seen with our clients and also from my own previous life, at the end, you're really only worried about your own risk, personal risk. Is your job safe, making the decisions you make? And that's even, you could say in a way, more paralyzing than everything, because you will not be, you're not basically incentivized to go out and do something new, because it might challenge what is already a very safe place to be. It's not true for all our clients, absolutely not, but it is something to be aware of, that that team that created the idea, for whom the responsibility is to create new ideas, might have a very, very different, let's say, mindset around what risk means than the people who actually then need to make it happen. So being aware of what are the dynamics in the organization, even if it's only an organization of, say, 20 people, maybe even if it's only 5 people, the stakeholders behind it, the people who can win or lose from the innovation success, need to be backing it, need to be aligned behind it, and then also support it when things go rough, because any innovation you launch will have a rough time at some point. I don't know of many stories where it was like success from day one. It doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen. No matter how much research you do, no matter how much arse covering, if I'm allowed to use that word. I'm not.
You already have.
Yeah, I've used it already.
It's
sorry,
out
sorry,
there. It's
US
gone.
users.
No,
viewers.
don't worry.
But there is so much research done to basically cover your bases or cover your beep, just to make sure that no one can blame you if it goes wrong. The amount of time and money you lose there is just astounding. So. And you need a lot less of that if the organization is aligned behind that the innovation is going to serve the right business objective. It's the right thing to do. And then acknowledging that you're going to get it 99% right, maybe 95% right the first time, and that you'll need to improve it and basically make it a living thing. That's a big investment. It becomes a new platform, and you're just going to help it create variations, new news around it for years to come, and that's where life cycle management comes in again.
But analytically, statistically, you have the evidence that backs that up. That's a difficult message to actually be telling a business owner or a CEO of a multinational that's what they've got to do. Is that sometimes? Is that a difficult sell on your part? Or is it because they've come to you that you're already qualified, that's the kind of information and support that you give business?
They typically come to us because they know we're good at this. But the easiest place to then get their attention is, it's usually actually on the part where we talked about assets, because that's where all the money tends to go. I mean, running a television commercial is cheap in comparison to building a new factory. And that's where the big worry is, that in order to do this innovation, most of the teams we work with come from a place where they associate innovation with massive expense. And that's where the risk is, because if you build the wrong factory, you are in a very bad place, because it's money lost, and that's going to haunt you for a long time and could even endanger the business. So navigating that risk by making that combination we talked about of smaller changes that are relatively affordable to do, which give you sort of some traction, and pairing those with the bigger innovations that do cost more money, but will also bring in more money, and navigating those two, or balancing those two in the right way, that's where you actually take a lot of the risk out, and it becomes a much easier conversation. Then all of a sudden, operational world and innovational world, say, which I mentioned before, come much closer together, and they actually go hand in hand, rather than in these continuous fights of, I want to do more of the same thing versus I want something new. And because you have to, I mean, in the end, it's a business which is about making money. You can't do new things all the time. You won't ever make money that way.
Even with all the information, even with knowing all of that, is it still possible to muck it up?
Of course. Because I think there's maybe one factor that we forgot, which is luck. And this is, again, where the winner's bias tends to sort of tune all the stories towards, oh, it's amazing, it's easy. You also need a little bit of luck, and you can be very unlucky as well. Let's also not forget that. And it's acknowledging when you're lucky to basically ride the wave and ride it all the way, versus just keeping on paddling against bad luck. And maybe that also comes a bit to the point which you mentioned, when you just have to throw in the towel and say, guys, we missed the opportunity. We thought it was there. Turns out it's not there.
Time to move on.
Time to move on, and that's an easier thing to say if you've managed the process before in such a way that you haven't stacked the risk up to your eyeballs, and realizing that bankruptcy is actually the threat, not just a failed launch. And those, I mean, never bet the ranch. For God's sake, never bet the ranch. No innovation is worth betting the ranch unless you've already lost the ranch.
Listen, it's been an absolutely fascinating hour. It's nearly up.
It's flown past.
It's flown by. And I think it's been a real insight into, I think small businesses, when they sit back and they look at big businesses, they think big businesses can do what they want. They can plough their own furrow, and they can develop and they can produce a product. And because of their size, the momentum of the organisation, it will be successful. And I think what you've shown today is that every business actually has the same issues and the same problems. And if you get it wrong, whether you're big or small, you've got it wrong, and it could and will fail. What we always do, we always invite our guests at the end of every programme to look straight down one of our cameras and to give the key takeaways that we've talked about today, just to remind our viewers what they should be doing within their own business. So, if I may be so bold, say who you are, where you're from, and straight down camera number 4, which is just over there, and just the key takeaways that we need to remember about today.
Yes. Well, thank you for listening. It's been a real pleasure. My name is Costas from Happen Innovation Agency, servicing crowded markets across the globe. When you're innovating, whether it's from a small business or a larger business, there's really 4 things that you need to keep an eye on. One is understand why you're innovating. What's the business reason for actually even doing anything? Which means you need to understand, are you solving a big problem or a small problem? The second is work on insights that you can actually act upon. So if you're working in a salad business and you're creating salads, spend some time with people while they're eating salads if you want to see some new things. Don't get it from reports that talk about what it was like when people were thinking about eating salads. The third one is create ideas that actually make commercial sense. And that might be not copying your competition, but do things that are right for you. And the fourth one is energize the business into action, which means it's not just the people creating the ideas that are going to push it through. The whole organization needs to sit behind it, which goes all the way from the top all the way to the bottom, because there are a lot of naysayers probably scattered around any organization, and it's making sure that they go into yes mode that will really help your ideas fly. That's what it comes down to. It's what we've been doing for 10 years. Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating insight. I keep saying fascinating a lot because every program that we do here, I do find really interesting, and I think the parallels that what we've drawn we were talking about you coming on the program. I was thinking the corporate level. I was thinking the blue chip company, the multinational brand. And I think so much of what you said today is relevant to not only to them, but also to the one-man band, the guy that is starting off, or the woman that's starting off with their small business that they're using the internet to sell on. They're developing products. They're looking at the way to actually utilise and maximise the return on their assets, and all those kind of things, regardless of whether they're a one-man band or a million person band, a Smith Kline Glaxo or somebody like that. They are all got their own issues, have all got their own problems, and the problems are very, very similar. It's been a real insight. Thank you very much indeed. You're heading off into London now, aren't you?
I am. Make sure that people are aware.
Oh yes, very quickly. The book. We've got the books.
They can download those from our website.
There are a couple of books that you can download from the website, and here we go. Thoughts from Grumpy Innovation. That looks a cracking book. Some good advice actually in here as well. And let's just see what this one says. Let me find something that I can read out quickly. That's going to be difficult to do, isn't it? Oh, let's go for this. This is stuff. These are phrases or terminology. The money your consumers save from that discount you gave will be spent on something else that isn't discounted, not on you. It's true, isn't it? See, buy 2 and they go spend the money, they'll buy somebody else's product. So you've got Thoughts from a Grumpy Innovator, and the other book is Generation Z. The new kids on the block have arrived. Now, both the books are available to be downloaded. The links are going to be below the page on the Business Connections Live website if you want to download them and find out a little bit more about the documentation. Some really good reads in these as well. Listen, Costas, thank you very much indeed for being a guest on today's programme. Thank you very much for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
And we hope you've enjoyed today's programme. Just a little bit of paperwork to do before we walk out the door. Some good stuff today, didn't you think? Wow. Next week's programme, well, there isn't a programme next week because it's another bank holiday here in the UK. There won't be one live, but don't forget there are 200 hours worth of programmes available online for you. Or if you want, you can just download one of the 2 books from Costas, and you can download those and maybe read those for an hour during the bank holiday here in the UK. On our next programme, we talked to Gordon Treadgold, international speaker and author. He's going to be joined by Charles Bennett, trainer and coach from the next 10 years. That'll be a good show. They were great guests on the programme a couple of weeks back, and we're very lucky to get them back in again. Coming up on future programmes are Warren Knight, Deborah Hume from Minerva Engagement, Samantha Earle from the General Manager of Per Thames Driver Training. We've also got Jackie Jarvis. Don't forget, check out the website, check out the Patreon thing. That's it. Check that out. Till we do it all again in a couple of weeks' time. Have yourself a great week, and thanks for watching Business Connections Live. Bye for now. Bye-bye.